Friends. This is Shakaya, Emily Craig, and I have established this new account because I have to deal with a legal matter in view of the circumstances by which I exist. Okay. At birth, and I always knew that I didn't belong in the family where I was fostered. Okay. At birth, I was removed from my natural family and I was trafficked in the adoption market and dumped into a poor family in California where I grew up. I grew up and it took many years of research to find my way back to my real relatives. And what I found is that my real relatives have a practice of disappearing people in the family who are inconvenient for the family business to support. And so 4 years ago, I put up a video here at YouTube in which I made the claim that the House of Windsor in England is really not a legitimate royal family, not only because their DNA does not match King George V or King Edward VII, but because their practices of using doppelgangers and lookalikes and actors implies that they have no business at the royal level. They're mercantile people who only handle business matters, and that's not the function of royalty. Okay? So, one of the things I have to confront is the fact that I was one of 4 kids of my father, Edward, Duke of Windsor. I was the youngest. The other 3, Pierre Edouard, born in Paris in 1918. Elizabeth, born to Wallace Warfield Simpson in 1934, who, like me, was taken away from her mother and dumped in Tennessee. She has a website called we3.org. I have not been able to get in contact with her. My elder sister, Margaret, whom you may know here as Peggy Childers. Peggy Childers insists that she is Edward, the Duke of Windsor's only offspring. And in that insistence, she is merely mistaken. I do not threaten her or criticize her or anything. I'm just here to say, hey, that's my sister. And she does not recognize me in any way. But her predicament and that of Elizabeth, the daughter of Wallace Warfield Simpson, has been identical to mine, taken away from our birth family, given false ID papers, and dumped in the adoption market into a poor family. The false ID papers that I got turned out to be those of a dead child, and that's basically what Peggy says happened to her too. All right. So that particular family is known for disappearing people. And let me go through their history of that. In 1892, King Edward VII's eldest son, Albert Victor, married a Catholic girl by the name of, it was either Alice or Elizabeth. And the family formally and forcibly separated them and put the wife in a mental institution and had her lobotomized. And Edward was sequestered at Glamis Castle until his death in 1931. The next one to go down was Tsar Nicholas, cousin Tsar Nicholas, who asked George V for sanctuary when the Bolsheviks were attacking him, and George V declined, and so Tsar Nicholas and his whole family were slaughtered. The next one was Prince John, who, being a little too precocious and a little too difficult to handle, was placed in a farm family and supposedly somehow died in 1918. But according to Peggy Childers, he actually showed up in the American South also. And then there's Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon's cousins, first cousins, whom she had institutionalized, and one of them lobotomized. So the Windsor family is getting rid of inconvenient relatives. And what do they do next? They replace us with doppelgangers and lookalikes. Now, King George V had two cousins, Tsar Nicholas and Kaiser Wilhelm, and the three of them liked to dress as triplets and thought it was funny that they couldn't be told apart. All right, so the idea of lookalikes began to occur under George V. All right, so when Edward VIII left the royal family in 1936 to marry Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, what the royal family did was ensconce Wallace Warfield Simpson up with a doppelganger, and she and the doppelganger lived out Edward, the Duke of Windsor's life for him and experienced all of the luxury and the entertaining and the West End parties and theater that Edward loved so much when he was in England. He almost never got back to his English roots, only being allowed to come back to England for funerals of close family members. All right, so Wallace turned out to be the lady of luxury and glamour, but Edward actually married Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, who was the sister of the artist George O'Keeffe. And looking online, what you'll find is all information about Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, except her birth and the year of her death, have been eradicated off the internet. Just as when I've had 3 different DNA tests done, they all come up with the same false information that was on my falsified birth certificate that gave me the wrong birth date and the wrong parents. So what is going on with the Windsor family has been a puppet show for a long time. And this is why Britain today is scrambling to find a prime minister who has some wits about them, who knows something, who knows how to lead. Because the royal family in Britain are not royal. They haven't been royal for 100 years. And they've completely reneged and abrogated the royal vows that Elizabeth took in June 2nd, 1953. And when her vows were placed before her, she signed up at the top of the page, now done at the bottom, so that she abrogated her vows the first time, the first day. All right. Now, if Britain wants to be a nation, Britain has to have leadership. They have to have people who stand up and direct traffic, okay? And direct the constituencies that deserve and require assistance and the constituencies that have to pay the bills. They have to be leaders who know how to talk in the language of the people and not just read from a script. They have to be extemporaneous. They have to be involved. And they've been involved at the business level. And Queen Elizabeth II has been a competent business figurehead for 66 years. But look at the condition of the United Kingdom. There is nobody leading it. Now, Nigel Farage is trying to lead, and he has an a wonderful command of the English language. Brian Garish is another one who knows how to point out what is already wrong. But what is needed is to show what is right. And what was the first thing that the monarch is supposed to do? Lead the church. Lead the church's ethics. Lead the church's ethics to declare and show and point out what is right and not just what's wrong. And what is right, okay, is not the official program of national suicide that the left has set up for the West. Okay, namely, we kill our own children. We invite hostile immigrants into our country to take over. We disarm our citizens, and we adopt all of the profligate sexual practices of the occult and Satanism. That's the program that the left has created for us in English-speaking countries. Pedophilia networks just run rampant. Drug running and gun running is just all a matter of pull. And this is not what my father wanted for the United Kingdom, and it's not what my sister Peggy Childers wants for the United Kingdom. I don't know about Elizabeth, the elder sister. I've never seen a communication from her. But anyway, now that I've got this YouTube account, this account will be used to talk about what is right about national leadership and guidance from wisdom in directing cultures and ethics to follow a common lead. Because, well, that's what God gives me to do. I hope I haven't offended you, and I hope that you can come by and take note and give me feedback about what I have to say about our government problem, because the secrecy and non-disclosure and double-headed ego, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. They tell us part truth and partly untruth. We've just had enough. Enough is enough. We've got to do something else. So let's figure out what it is to do. Thank you. And I'm Emily Elizabeth Windsor Craig. Bye-bye.